Hey friends, welcome back to the Gentleman's Journey. Guys, in this one we're going to be talking about my brand new knife. So if you're just joining, my name is Charles. We talk about a lot of boots and other guy related stuff on this channel. And friends, today we're talking about everyday carry pocket knives. So friends, if you're just like me, then you probably have an array of these cheaper kind of entry-level knives that you end up grabbing from Walmart or maybe your local hardware store. Guys, you can run down and get something for 20 bucks, 40 bucks, and have a little pocket knife that will do you for a little bit of time. If you're anything like me, you might end up breaking the tip off of one, or you'll probably lose the pocket clip. Of course, there's some good remedies for that. Don't be using your pocket knife in ways you shouldn't. And then, of course, for the pocket clip, you can use some blue Loctite or something like that to get that to stay. But at any rate, we're going to cover just a couple of my older knives here and what led up to getting this great cold steel knife. So friends, this is kind of my first knife in the folding everyday carry pocket knife that's been anything of value. So I got a couple, maybe the tops like 40 bucks. But I just haven't got into it, and so I'm guilty of just running out and grabbing another cheap knife. And if you've watched back the channel, you know I really talk down about consumerism. I talk down about buying just cheap junk. You know, you can buy some good stuff at Walmart, but just kind of this off-the-shelf junk that's made to just last a couple months and then you go at it again. So I'm thinking about this in other areas of my life, and many of you guys, if you're into boots, you probably carry a pocket knife. You're into some of the same stuff, so I thought, why not bring this to the channel? And I wanted to kind of do it with a bang. So we came out again with this cold steel knife, and it's a beast, friends. So we're going to get into some of the characteristics of it. We're going to talk about some of my old knives, but just to show you for size, probably the two biggest ones are these guys. So this one here is basically like a Walmart situation. I ended up looking up this knife and I found this knife. I found this basically on the curb, and it's called Mace brand, and it's kind of goofy. I don't know exactly. They're trying to fit all kinds of different things into one knife. It looks chunky, like you think you're some kind of military ops guy or something. It does fold open pretty quickly. I'm happy with the draw. Again, friends, I'm going to be talking about some terms that I really don't know what I'm talking about because I'm just getting into the terms, even though I've used this stuff for a long time. But something I noticed right away is the belt clip. It got really loose, and I need to get the right size little wrench there so I can take that off, put some Loctite, and then I'll be good. I also have to bend it flat again because it's kind of came up to where now it doesn't really sit flat in my pocket, and that's been a bummer. One of my next favorites, honestly, guys, is the Smith & Wesson, and something I didn't realize about it, see, it's not locking, but what happened is this knife, really, my new one, I don't know, I've read different reviews online. Some say it opens good just with the thick of your thumb. Well, it did that time, but often, because it's a big knife, we'll get into this. We're coming into this in just a minute, friends. I guess I can get it open, but realistically, if I really want to get it open quick, I give it a little flick of the wrist too. And that's what usually helps me get this one open. So this guy here, this is Smith & Wesson, and I'll tell you, it says SW609. So I don't know if that's the steel or the model number, but it has a little finger thing on the back, and I kind of like that. It's supposed to pop open. You'll see some of these Kershaws do pop open like that. I don't know if I could lube it. Let me know if you guys have a recommendation on some lube I should be using with knives. But at any rate, it's not opening too much until I go ahead and give it the flick of the wrist, and then it stays locked. So preparing for this video and getting this knife, I actually kind of fixed a problem that I had with this one. And now, well, it's not very trustworthy. And that's one thing that scares me about a knife. You want to pop it open and know that it's going to stay locked. That's the scariest thing about folding knives. And when this thing does get locked, it's kind of hard to unlock again. That's why if you're doing any kind of serious work, I always recommend just having a full tang knife. We'll get into this guy just a little bit briefly. You know, if I'm doing any kind of real work, this is the knife that I go for. I love this knife. It's been really dependable for me, and I've beat it up really bad. So these 3 little Kershaws came in a kit. And this one opens up really nice. Again, I really like kind of the back finger deal there. And this thing will pop open. And I think Kershaw did a good job. But if you look at the blades, these all say Promo 2022. So I got these. I don't know if I bought them or got them as a gift, but I got these all as a promo. So this one has been my daily runner, but of course the tip is broken. So that's been a huge bummer, having that tip broken. And then I stopped using this one because I lost the pocket clip. I think I have it. I don't think I have both of the screws. I thought about maybe stealing this one. Again, I just got to find my little tools. I have a set. And then this one was just too small. It came in the kit too. I just don't use it. Nothing has gone out on it yet. Maybe I could use the belt clip at some point on these other ones. Again, we're just walking briefly through these before we lead up to talking about this guy. And then of course you have your Milwaukee, and this is just your box opener. You can obviously replace these blades, flip it around, and now you got a clean, fresh one, although I don't think that one's any fresher than the other side. This guy, you know, just has its own purpose. I do see guys carrying these for everyday carry, and it does sit low in the pocket. We'll talk about that a little bit too. These guys here sit low in the pocket, so I really like when they sit low. This, again, all 3 of these so far sit low in the pocket, just meaning that when you have this in your pocket, the clip sits up so far that you really don't see much coming out at all. So that's something I go for, and I guess that's where we can start again real quickly with this guy, in that the cold steel does not sit down too low in your pocket. Again, it's such a big knife that I don't know how much of it you want sticking down, because it's just such a large knife. At any rate, that's one of the first negatives we'll give to this knife. We're going to go through and talk about all that stuff. Then this last one is kind of fun. This is another Kershaw, but friends, I just found this. If you follow me on Instagram, make sure and check out the Gentleman's Journey on Instagram. I just found this when we were magnet fishing. All right guys, so kind of a summary. You know, Jolene found these really cool pliers. I think we showed you guys the knife. I'm lost right now. I think for the day, the knife remains the coolest find. Just a million fish hooks. Guys, we got the fishing pole. We're still checking for a few last things, but check this out. Last minute, I pulled these suckers up, and I gotta tell you, that might have been my coolest find of the day. And then this flashlight. So guys, we're pretty convinced that right here, there is some kind of old tackle box, but just look at all this stuff. So friends, if you check out the color of this thing, it's still gold. Now, for some reason, this side's fully gold, but this part of the blade is not. But the rest of the handle and everything is. So friends, I checked out this knife. It's the Kershaw. I think it's made in March 04, if I had to guess what that number is. It's the 1660. And so this knife, from what I can tell, is about $100. So the reason I'm excited about that, not that maybe it has that much value anymore, is just it's the coolest thing I've found while we're magnet fishing. I gotta tighten this up, put some Loctite on the belt clip, but it's a good little everyday carry. I think I started researching it, and a lot of guys have got some good use out of this. Let me know if you've ever carried this knife. Again, it's the Kershaw, I wanna say 1660. So this one's been pretty cool. I'm gonna be taking my Falkniven knife sharpener, and I'm going to be hitting this. So we'll talk about this as well, and a couple of these things like this, my beast over here, and of course the AD-10. We'll have a link in the description. Friends, when you guys buy through that, it's going to send you over to Amazon. It's not going to cost you any extra, but it just gives a kickback to me. It lets Amazon know that I sent you there, and it's going to help me put out videos just like this. So at any rate, let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of this. If you're anything like me, you probably have the same collection going on of all these silly knives, and you just can't get rid of them. For whatever reason, you think maybe one day I'll use that, or like I said, maybe I'll tighten that up, maybe I'll lube it, all these different silly things, but maybe it's something you throw in the glove box of your truck and you at least have something. Guys, if you're going out into the woods at all, if you really demand a knife, just make sure and carry a full tang knife, because these things break. Sometimes they're not trustworthy. Sometimes they don't stay locked like that one, and they get kind of dangerous. What they've done over here on this cold steel AD-10 is they call it the triad lock, featuring the triad lock. So they're really proud of the locking mechanism. So something you're going to notice on this one versus every single one of my other knives is these all unlock right here. So unlock at the thumb. And I get really used to that. So this is what I grew up on though. So I grew up on all my folding knives, of course, probably like you, they had it on the back. And at any rate, that's a much more secure and trustworthy locking mechanism. Guys, this knife is over $100. I got it on a Black Friday sale, so we'll see where the price stays. I think it was like $110, but I've seen this knife for up to like $250. So I don't know the actual full value of this knife, but I think I got a pretty good deal on it. And I checked back the reviews, and I'm not seeing anything on the locking mechanism going out. Something people do note is that this is a one-hand. This is not a one-hand unlocker. You know, you can open it with one hand and get moving, get grooving, do what you need to do, but it's best if you close it with one hand, with two. So some of these others, I'm just so used to closing on my own, even this little guy. Everything's happening with one hand. Just obviously make sure you're keeping your hand out of harm's way and know where your knife is at all times, know where your fingers are at all times. But these guys I can go through here. I am getting used to doing this one, but friends, I'll tell you, it is, I'm gonna cut myself on screen. See, it's just a little nerve-wracking, and this thing is so sharp. I have honestly cut myself already. Another way, I thought maybe if you just put the tip down on something, and then it's, you know, I'm just so ready to use it with two hands. I don't usually open it just on screen. I'm doing that right now, but at any rate, it's kind of you're closing it two hands. So I said I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts. Now friends, the overall length of this blade is 8 3/8 inches. So it has a 4-inch blade, and then the handle is 4 7/8 inches. So guys, this is a really big knife, and I brought out some of these others. This is just your Milwaukee. I'm going to try to give you guys some side-by-side there. I want to give you guys a couple of these comparisons. So here's that Smith & Wesson, and you can look up some of the specs of maybe some of the knives that you have, but it's really hard to explain just how big this knife is. So friends, again, this guy is going to be 8 3/8 inches overall, a 4-inch blade, which 4-inch blade seems kind of common. Like if you look at the difference of these two blades, like that's a 4-inch blade. But what it is, it's so thick. So the thickness of this blade, let's see, is 3.8 millimeters. So it's a really thick blade, and then the handle is really bulky. So part of what makes the handle so chunky and so thick, they have these aluminum liners, which I was thinking was kind of more common practice, because even these cheap little Kershaws have the liners, and then they have what's called the 3D machined G10 scales. So that's the outer, and of course a little bit thicker studs in here, a little bit thicker bolts for all the mechanics to hold it together. And you'll see on some of your cheaper handles they'll start coming apart. But honestly, this thing is beef, man. And that's the thing is, I think the reason I can pull this knife off a little bit easier is I'm a pretty large guy, and this thing actually looks like maybe one of these in the average guy's hands. It just looks like it fits me, but you can see how small that looks in my hand, where this just fits me. So I was watching reviews just like this myself, and I was reading up on it, and a lot of guys were saying it's a brick in their pocket. Again, I'm a larger guy, and so it just fits my hands really well. In that, it's still kind of big for some of the smaller everyday little purposes that we have. And just in that, with this blade, it's about the same length blade, but just with it being a little bit more smaller profile blade in terms of thickness of the blade, and then the handle being a lot bit smaller, and then again just the height of the blade, I guess we'll say. So you can still see that blade come up behind it. So it's a taller blade. Well, of course, look at something small like this. I mean, if this is still considered the everyday carry blade style, it barely fits in that category, because check out this blade. This is obviously my workhorse. And guys, they're starting to compare to each other. I mean, these things really are starting to compare for some of the duties that they can perform. But at any rate, it weighs in at 6.9 ounces. So I encourage you, if you have a knife, maybe you have one of these Kershaws or something, just grab the weight, grab the measurements on yours, and then that'll give you something really good to compare it to. I mean, even if you have this Milwaukee, you start to think about, you know, this being in your hand and how you can use it. You can compare the weight, and before you order online, you can start thinking about that stuff. Just know, guys, if I haven't said it enough, you're getting a really big knife here. This is great. The purpose that a lot of guys use this for is a really good hunting knife. Again, I'm so new to this blade, and I'm so new to this locking mechanism, that if I was to go to the woods, I would still take something like this with me, just because I trust that. But you know what? I might play with this for a while and never have to get that out. So you could dress a deer with this thing with no dramas. You can do your cooking and camp chores with no dramas. You can do all kinds of stuff around the fire. You know, getting your feather sticking going on. You can, I mean, you can get it done with this knife. So that's one thing that attracted me to this one for sure. So going back to the blade a bit, it has that drop point, and then it has the S35VN steel. So I'm researching all kinds of steels and trying to get my mind wrapped around the way they grade them and the whole new world of really understanding blade steel. And from what I can tell, it's a really good metal, and it's something that cold steel just keeps going back to. So you look at all these, and some of these aren't even advertising what kind of steel they have. A lot of these don't boast anything. Now again, you look at Kershaw, and you have this guy coming in at about $100, and you can, this whole pack of like 3 or 4 was 20 bucks. So obviously this is, it says China right on it. You know, it's some cheap stuff here, and this one says made in USA, so take that for what you will. But these companies, just like any company, want to make business. So Kershaw wants to be the man in terms of the elite, you know, good quality knives. And then they want to obviously make some money and pick up some of the bottom feeders like I've been, you know, grabbing this cheap stuff off the bottom. So Kershaw is going to do what any other good business is going to do and try to basically get some sales wherever they can. So one thing they say about this blade is it resists chipping or breaking, and so I'm going to do my darndest not to get into some dumb situations again, but hopefully I won't have similar fate to this knife. Again, we'll probably do a 1-year update on this knife, so be subscribing to the channel so you can stick around and see how this performs for me. But let me know in the comments if you guys have had this blade break, or in fact any of that, what is it, S35VN, if you've had any of that steel break and chip on you, and how you've done in terms of caring for it and sharpening it, and how it holds an edge. I'd love to hear about some of that stuff from y'all as well. So friends, let's do a couple little tasks, if you will, that people like to do with knives. Well, just before we get the knife too dirty, well, I don't even know. I'll probably feed this, my dog loves carrots, so I'll probably end up giving him this carrot. But friends, one of the things that people do with knives, obviously, is cook, and you do camp chores, and you clean. So let's just chop a couple little carrots. So I was able to get that really thin, and honestly, friends, that's gonna make for, usually I'm standing up, so I didn't even go all the way through, but it's more of my angle and not the knife. At any rate, I usually don't sit down and chop, but there's that, friends. We got a really good thin slice there. Something that people always want to see in terms of testing a knife is the paper. So that's how I started off the video. And again, I'm wanting to know how y'all's knife is holding an edge. I want to see how, this is my map to Prentice Creek State Park. That's where we're at right now over here in Texas. But yeah, I'd be really curious. I mean, you're gonna be hard pressed to get a sharper knife than that. Especially for how big that blade is. Again, it's a really thick blade up top, but they are able to, right out of the factory, just bring it down to a really nice point. Something that I do, obviously at camp and everything, is the feather sticking. Awesome knife, guys. We won't go through a million of the uses. Everybody here is going to have a different use for their knife. You know, if you're opening up boxes and stuff like that, work in a warehouse, obviously this is going to be great. Again, kind of bulky, so keep that in mind. But maybe you're a guy that has big hands like I do. At any rate, this might be the go for you. So I'm going to drop a link to that. But so basically what I got a little bit ago is this Falkniven CC4. So they got the CC4, DC4. There's a couple options there, friends. It has a stone on one side and then the white ceramic-y side on the other. So you're going to hit it first with this side and you're going to just hone down the knife and you're going to get all the burrs off. And friends, this is something you're going to have to get into your own motion. You know, they say every time that you do it on one side, you're going to be coming back on the other. So this is a matter of, it's a pretty small stone, so getting your hands out of the way and coming back on each side, and then you can come over and hit the other side. Again, just remembering that pattern and trying to keep the same angle. This is definitely not a knife sharpening video. Maybe in the future we'll get something like that done, but this is going to be something you'll probably want to watch some more videos on to get this. You just got to spend time with it, and especially, you know, if it's been like a month or something since I've gone through my knives and I come back to this, it's going to just take some of that brain motor skill functions to just get right back into it. There's different guys that say you shouldn't pull away, that you should push towards the blade. So that's kind of the camp I sit in, that you should push towards it. But again, I think you're just cutting hairs, as they say. It's kind of not really that big of a difference, although arguably a lot of folks would say it is. So this guy that I just found while I was magnet fishing, I'm going to be coming over here with that and seeing what kind of edge I can get on it. Supposedly this blade is a good blade and it holds a really good edge, so I'm excited to see what I can get done with that. Then the back of this little leather pouch it comes in is where you can strop it. And so they have this little green compound that you can buy, kind of jeweler's rouge, that you can put on there and then strop it. So I don't have that, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of that stropping. But at any rate, you know what, friends, there's so much to talk about with this knife. I think just some of the main takeaways is it's bulky. One of the things I don't love about it is it doesn't sit as low in your pocket. They do give you an extra belt clip, so I think you can put it on the other side. Maybe you're left-handed or whatnot. But friends, it is a beast. I don't think it's gonna be my ultimate everyday carry. And I think that's the fun thing is, again, this is the gentleman's journey. So I'm just pretty transparent, taking you guys along with me as I figure out what works best for me, whether it's boots or, you know, last couple videos ago, we were talking about a diesel heater, a Chinese diesel heater, and just the pros and cons to that and how that could work in my lifestyle. With the knife, you know, I want something a bit smaller. I want something about this size. It's, again, the blade length is fine, just a little bit smaller profile to fit in my pocket, because even though this does, like, nothing fits my hand better than this thing, I'll tell you what, guys, this thing's just a little bit too big for what I want in terms of an everyday carry. So let me know in the comments. I would love to know y'all's suggestion, whether it's Cold Steel, whether it's Smith & Wesson, whether, you know, it's gonna be over here with Kershaw. There's so many, like, Case, and there's Gerber. I mean, there's so many knives out there. But in terms of this guy over here, I said I wanted to get to that before we get out of here. So this has been my best all-around camp knife. I keep it a pretty decent edge on it. I've been going to town with this guy and been able to get a really decent edge. It's one of those steels that probably doesn't hold the finest edge, and that's because it's made for just hammering, man. You can see the back of it. You can see how I've tore it up. And you know, in terms of processing my camp wood, I've always grown up with like a hatchet. So getting down to my kindling, I've been able to use a hatchet, but lately I've been really enjoying the batoning. So I just baton the heck out of this thing, and that's because it's so wide. The metal is so thick that I can just hammer away on it, and I found that to be a really safe way of just getting down to my kindling and getting my fire started. I can do feather sticking with this thing. I mean, I'm not kidding you, it holds really good for feather sticking, and it's just been a really good all-around knife. So I don't know if it's the best knife in this category. Again, there's a few things I don't like about it. I might take my grinder and rub these little grips on there off, because I get their point. If I had a glove on, it doesn't hurt as much, but if I'm like really grinding away, these little grips start hurting. Other from that, again, it's a handle that fits my hand, and that's pretty rare, friends, to find something that fits my hand so well. But again, if you really look at it, what I'm going on about this knife, these guys really aren't too far apart in terms of size. So I'll drop a link to this guy down in the description below. I'll drop a link to this guy, and then of course to my knife sharpener, so y'all can check that stuff out. But again, I'm really looking for basically recommendations on an everyday carry. This clip, this pocket clip, a lot of guys say is, well, it's kind of bulky, and you just look at it compared to any other pocket clip, and it really is just a little bit dorky there. So apparently this is based on the Andrew Dembski 4 Max, and if you look at shots of these side by side, it's unbelievable how big that thing is. Truthfully, I still want to get my hands on that, even though I keep going on about how big this is. At some point, if you are going out for a certain purpose and you want a folder, you know, man, I'll tell you what, that knife, I think it's one of those things where you got to be careful not to get an addiction to, you know, as we're thinking about being better gentlemen and being stewards of God's money and where we want to put our money for our family. And maybe there's stuff that our kids need or our wife needs, or something we want to bless our parents in some way. We just got to be careful that we're not a guy that has 15 of these expensive knives just sitting around. So I would encourage you, you know, as you're finding a knife, maybe if you find one and you got a couple in the closet you're not using, let them go. These things, it's not what I'm talking about. These things are trash. They're done. Hoarding these isn't going to hurt anybody. It's not going to help anybody. I wouldn't really want to give them away to anybody either, because they're unsafe. But you know, just be careful not to, whether it's boots or knives or anything, go at it too crazy. So friends, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. Certainly a little bit different as we dive into this knife and I ramble on for a little bit about all this stuff. I'm enjoying it. If you're still with me, I appreciate y'all. And just let me know what kind of knives you want to see on the channel, because we're going to get into this a little bit more. Got some more boots obviously coming your way. That's the main thing over here. And a few other guy related things. So if there's some stuff y'all want to see me talk about, just let me know down there in the comments and we'll be sure to get to some of that. At any rate, friends, until the next video, may the Lord bless you. And hey, don't forget to give those boots some love from time to time. And don't forget to sharpen those knives. So friends, we'll catch you in the next video.